everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here for our DFS value picks for this week's Memorial Tournament. In this video, we'll be going over some of those salary saving plays priced $7,500 and below on Draftkings to give you some salary flexibility with your lineups and perhaps to let you fit in an extra stud or two into your lineups. And with the strength of field we have this week, you are certainly going to want to do so. I mean, just a ton of studs in that 9 and 10K range, an extremely strong 8K range. So any salary that we can free up here with some of the cheaper plays on the board is going to be even more valuable in a week like this. So that's what we're going to cover here. Of course, the goal is to go after some of those high upside plays, a little bit more of a GPP mindset when it comes to these picks, where they're going to be perhaps a little bit riskier plays than what you'd like to go to in a single entry or a cash game. But of course, if everything goes their way, could very well finish in the top 5 or top 10 at this venue. So a lot to talk about. 6 plays that I really want to be able to go over in full detail here. So let's go ahead and hop right on into it. Alrighty, let's start this thing off with Aaron Wise at $7,500. He's a value pick at the top of our range here, and in terms of recent form, course fit, putting on bent grass, pretty much everything we're looking for, Aaron Wise is going to check those boxes. So let's just go tab by tab, show you what I'm talking about. With the recent form, he has certainly started to get much more consistent of late. In the fall swing, he was playing some really solid golf, was pretty much a play for us week in and week out. Now towards the beginning of 2022, he started to struggle, started to miss a few cuts. When he was making cuts, was only posting top 25s at the very most. But over his last few starts, you've seen the Aaron Wise of old, right? Top 25 at the PGA, which for him is a very solid finish at a major championship. 51st at the Byron Nelson, top 10 at the Mexico Open, 21st at the RBC Heritage. So like I said, has started to look a lot more consistent. And as a result, so have his shots gained metrics. So over his last 24 measured rounds, you can see he's gaining significantly off the tee and on approach. In fact, close to half a stroke per round off the tee and over 3/4 of a stroke per round on approach. Around the green is a positive for him. That's usually going to be the case for an Aaron Wise, is more than capable of getting up and down. And of course, that was evidenced at the Honda Classic. He almost ended up winning a few years ago, has been in contention multiple times down there in South Florida. And that's a Nicklaus design with tricky greens, undulated fast greens. And while they're Bermuda grass greens, not the bent grass greens that we have down here at the Memorial, he does his best work on bent grass. Right? If you take a look at his putting over his baseline, he's over 1/4 of a stroke better per round on bent grass than he has been over his last 50 rounds. And for Aaron Wise, his putting hasn't been all that bad over his last 50 measured rounds. In fact, just a slight negative. So for his career, he's a positive putter on bent grass. And, if he can continue some of the momentum that we've seen of late, where he's only been a slight negative in that category, he goes out there and actually gains strokes on the field this week on the greens. With how good he is tee to green, I mean, the sky is the limit for Aaron Wise. He's had success at the Nicklaus Corollary course, like I said, down there at Honda Classic. He's got the off the tee play we're looking for, is more than accurate enough for a Muirfield Village with some relatively large fairways. The greens, we know he's going to be extremely precise. I mean, his approach play is by far his best asset. Just not really a reason that you don't want to play an Aaron Wise. In fact, if you take a look at the course history here, it's a little bit volatile for Wise. He does have a few missed cuts mixed in, but last year finished in the top 10. So certainly is trending in the right direction. Has the comp courses, the recent form that we're looking for, and of course just the bent grass putting splits there too. So in terms of a play, I really can't find a reason at all to avoid him. So it's certainly going to be a key piece of my lineups here for the Memorial. Next up, we have Arnaban Lahiri as our next value play at $7,200. And kind of like an Aaron Wise, he checks every box that we're looking for. So let's go tab by tab. First off with the recent form, where you can see that Lahiri has gone back into form outside of the missed cut at the PGA Championship, which did burn quite a few people. That's why I expect him to maybe be a little bit lower owned this week than he should be. 6th place at the Wells Fargo, that is excellent. Top 15 at the Mexico Open. Not really a golf course that even fit his game, but made the cut at the Heritage. 13th at Valero, of course, was 2nd place at the Players Championship. I mean, this guy is on absolute fire. And of course, the shots gained metrics reflect that. If we take a look at his numbers, you can see he's gaining across all 4 categories. He's gaining significantly off the tee, which is a little bit surprising for Lahiri. You'd expect that to be primarily with his putting and his approach play, but that's just an extra bonus to have there. He's been very accurate off the tee. Also has added a little bit of extra distance there, a little bit of sneaky distance. And around the green, we know he's an absolute wizard. If he continues to hit the ball off the tee like he has over his last 24 rounds, I mean, this is an absolute smash spot. And the cherry on top here is the course history. If we take a look at that for him, he has a 2nd place finish in 2017, and he's made the cut in his other 2 stops over here to Muirfield Village. So again, kind of like an Aaron Wise, every box that we're looking for is checked. And even if you look at the last 50 measured rounds, it's not quite as strong for Lahiri as his last 24 rounds. Still gaining significantly off the tee, gaining around the green, a slight positive with the putter. The one issue is the approach play, where he can be a little bit volatile. But I mean, of late, he's a positive there. He's been a lot more consistent, and that's why the finishes have also started to become a lot more consistent, right? 3 top 15 finishes over his last 15 starts. That is excellent for Lahiri. And if he goes out there and reproduces that type of finish this week, would be more than enough for our GPP lineups. Next up, we're going to go to Adam Hadwin, who is usually somebody I fade here. Frankly, I don't like the guy all too much. He's not a very flashy player. I always expect him to be a little bit over-owned when it comes to DFS, but based on recent performances where he hardly made the cut at the PGA and he missed cut the week before that, I'm expecting him to be almost completely overlooked this week. And for Hadwin, that's going to be like a 7 to 8% ownership range here at $6,800. I mean, he was 20 to 25% owned for plenty of the slates where he missed the cut or finished at 70th. And now everyone wants to write him off. And I mean, let's just look at the numbers, because for Adam Hadwin, they're otherworldly. This is why he was so chalky over that stretch, because it made sense. He was getting a ton of strokes on approach. He was doing his thing around the green. He's always going to gain with the flat stick. He's a very consistent putter. The X factor is off the tee, and he had been holding it together off the tee. In fact, when he was in that super hot stretch of golf, he was gaining a ton of strokes off the tee because he was so accurate. Here at Muirfield Village, it's a golf course where it de-emphasizes that off the tee play. Most weeks, it's like a 30% weight when it comes to your shots gained. This week, or at least over the last 4 years at Muirfield Village, it's been right around a 20% weighting. So, of course, a little bit, I wouldn't say a little bit of a de-emphasis. It's about a 50% de-emphasis on the off-the-tee play. So if there's anything that has held him back, that shouldn't be as much of an issue this week. And let's look at the recent form. Like I said, the reason why he's going to be lower owned this week is because his last 2 performances have kind of sucked, right? 71st, missed cut there at the Zurich, which I can almost completely write off because that's a team event. Before that, though, the guy was on absolute fire. Top 26 finish at the RBC, 4th place at Valero, down there in the Florida Swing Masters season before that. Was just very sharp. He's going out there gaining a ton of strokes in every category. Was pretty much a made cut machine for us. And now everyone wants to write him off after a few bad performances, one of which at the team event. Who knows? It could have been completely his partner that held him back. I'm willing to buy in on that spot because the course history, while it hasn't been ideal for an Adam Hadwin, he's at least played here before, right? Missed cut, a couple missed cuts, but 3 made cuts there from 2020 to 2018. So he has experience on these greens. He understands the strategy around Muirfield Village much more than some of these guys that have only played here 1 to 2 times. And if he's going to be super low owned for the first time, perhaps in the last 3 to 4 months, and that's a spot I want to buy in on. I mean, he's got the numbers that we're looking for. The reason why he was such a fade is because he was completely overhyped at this point. But if nobody wants to play him now and the numbers are still there, now he's an underhyped player, right? It's crazy how people will go 0 to 100 on a player, then go completely from 100 to 0, just completely 180 overnight, just based on one bad performance. And guys, we should know this at this point. It's golf. It's a volatile sport. You're going to have bad weeks or even bad stretches from time to time. If the shots gain metrics there, if the breadcrumbs for a solid performance are still there in the metrics, always going to be somebody I'm willing to buy in on. So like I'm there at $6,800. And I guess the cherry on top here, we didn't even talk about it, are the bent grass splits. He's even better on bent grass than other surfaces, and he's already a really solid putter to begin with. So, somebody who's gaining to the field over his last 24 rounds perhaps could get even better. And with the de-emphasis on the off-the-tee play, everything sets up for this to be a great golf course for Adam Hadwin. Next up, we have Brendan Steele, and Brendan Steele, I mean, if you're looking at any type of a model this week, he's going to be at the top of that model. He's just, from a ball striking perspective, has been absolutely scraping it over his last 24 rounds. So if we take a look at that, just to give you an idea of exactly how well he's been playing, he's gaining over 3/4 of a stroke per round off the tee, over half a stroke per round on approach. He's a gainer around the green, and of course, the putter is the one thing that holds him back. The course history has also been very consistent for a Brendan Steele. Made cut here in all 4 of his last trips, including a top 15 finish there in 2020. The recent form is starting to come around as well. While he was in a rough stretch of golf for quite some time, he's been much more consistent. Top 10 at the PGA, made the cut at Wells Fargo, top 5 at the Zurich, made the cut at Valero. Just what we're used to seeing from Brendan Steele, right? He's going to make a bunch of cuts, but you want him to have that high upside week with the putter where he can finish in the top 10, like he's done 2 of his last 3 starts. Or, we can kind of throw away the Zurich, much like missed cuts at the Zurich, I'm not going to look too much into. A top 5 finish at the Zurich doesn't mean that much to me either, but this top 10 at the PGA Championship, I mean, that's big time stuff. It's one of the best fields in all of golf, a very difficult golf course, which doesn't necessarily play into Brendan Steele's game. He's still found success. So that shows you just how good the recent form has been. And the real X factor here is the putting on bent grass. He's also one of those guys that is much better on this surface than he is on any other. He's over 1/4 of a stroke better per round on bent grass. So if he can go out there, continue to be his best self from tee to green, which, at this point, he's a proven commodity when it comes to that. He's always been one of the best tee to green players, especially in this 6 to 7K range. But if he can bring that putter to the table too, he could post another top 10 finish. And at this price tag, that'd be more than enough at $6,600 for these large field GPPs. Maybe an even higher upside play, though, would be Erik van Rooyen at $6,600. He is somebody who's an absolute madman. So if you're looking for safety, go to Brendan Steele, right? They're the same price tag here. But if you're looking for GPP winning upside, or perhaps somebody in this 6K range that can actually win this event, that's Erik van Rooyen. If we take a look at the shots gain metrics, you'll see what I'm talking about. He's somebody who's gaining a ton on approach, and everywhere else is very inconsistent. Off the tee, he's extremely long, so you'd expect him to be gaining off the tee, but he's not the most accurate player. He deals with issues from left to right, gets himself plenty of penalty strokes, but like I mentioned before, off the tee, not very important around Muirfield Village. People hit right around 70% of fairways, so relatively large targets, and even though there is penal rough, because the targets are so large, there's just not that much of a, let's say, there's not much polarization between the field, right? The extremely accurate players aren't hitting that many more fairways than the guys that are extremely inaccurate. So for EVR, that plays into his skill set. It's also why I like a guy like an Adam Hadman that we talked up here a little bit ago, but the approach play is the main reason we want to play this guy. He can get super hot with the iron play. When he gains to the field, he usually doesn't gain like 2 to 3 strokes. It's usually in that 5 to 8 shots gained approach range, where he's just pin hunting on every single hole. The putter, while it's not the most consistent attribute for an Erik van Rooyen, he loves himself some bent grass. And the numbers over his last 50 measured rounds are right around 0.2 shots per round over his baseline. But the further and further that you look out on that, the more of a sample size you give him rather than just the 50 measured rounds, the more and more that difference becomes. So, anytime we can get him on bent grass, EVR is going to be somebody that I have my eye on, particularly at a golf course where it's a little bit more lenient off the tee. Now, if he's completely spraying it, if he's only hitting half of his fairways, putting himself in that 4-inch bent grass more than he needs to, it's going to go south very quickly. That's why I said he's a very volatile play. Certainly not the safest option in the 6K range. But if he's keeping himself in that fairway, watch out. This is a top 10 waiting to happen. That's just the type of volatility that he brings to the table. If you take a look at the course history, I believe he's only played here once. Yeah, he has. He finished in the top 25 when he came here in 2020, so that does play into his skill set. And the recent form, you can see it's been very volatile, right? Missed cut. Top 10 finish at the Heritage, missed cut, right? So he's that boomer bust type of play, which for large field GPPs is extremely attractive. That's why he's in this video here. But for cash games or single entries, probably want to be avoiding EVR. So just understand that it's very much a play that's dependent on the contest, or at least the play style that you're going for this week. But somebody that I'm going to have well over the field on. And now lastly, the last value pick this week is going to be Beau Hossler at $6,200. And yes, I said Beau Hossler is only $6,200, which, if you take a look at the shots gain metrics, would make a lot of sense, but there's also a lot of things pointing to this being a very good golf course for him. So first and foremost, the shots gained metrics, the reason why he's priced where he is, and if he were only looking at this, you'd probably get it, right? He's losing a ton on approach. He's been horrible and actually trying to hit greens, but off the tee, he's been right around a neutral. He's been right around a neutral around the green, and he's gaining with the putter. So outside of the approach play, we'd like Beau Hossler this week, right? He's long enough off the tee because of the de-emphasis on the accuracy off the tee. That does help Beau Hossler this week. The around the green play, he's always been pretty solid, and he's always a really good putter on bent grass. You can see, even though he's an elite putter to begin with, he is a slate positive in terms of his splits on bent grass, so even better on this surface. The reason why I really like Hossler here is that event that they had on the Korn Ferry Tour. It's not actually on Memorial. It's a similar golf course. It's right down the road, also a Jack Nicklaus design. He finished in second place at that event. So if he's going to have familiarity with a Jack Nicklaus design, if you take a look at some of his other performances on Jack Nicklaus golf courses, it's also been relatively impressive. Has made a lot of cuts at those events. Hasn't had a winner, top 5 or anything like that. But at $6,200, he has a lot more upside than a lot of these other plays. The recent form, again, with the shots gained metrics that we've seen, you wouldn't expect it to be all that good, but he did finish in the top 25 last week. He did make the cut at the PGA Championship. At one point was in the top 30 at the PGA, kind of fell apart towards the end, top 20 at the Byron Nelson. And again, you can see the volatility. Missed cut at the team event, missed cut at the RBC Heritage. But top 5 over here at the Valero Texas Open, I mean, he's a perfect GPP play, kind of similar to an Eric Van Rooyen. When he goes out there and makes a cut, it has his best stuff. I mean, you're going to need to have Beau Hossler, right? He's going to finish in that top 15, top 10. When he doesn't have his best stuff, you're going to know it early. He's going to miss the cut. And at Memorial, that is certainly well within his range of outcomes, missing the cut, right, because it's such a difficult golf course. But if he has his best stuff, and at $6,200, I mean, you're not going to find a better value, at least per the price on the board. So love him there at that price tag. Should realistically be closer to $6,700, maybe even $6,800 here on the slate. The corollary course that we have with that nationwide tour event is just even more of a reason to go and play him. And the course history, I don't think he's played here all that often. Yeah, you can see he's only played here twice. He had a missed cut in 2019, a made cut in 2018. So not really anything we can look too much into there. I just think he's a really sneaky play this week and somebody that could crack that top 10 potentially. All right, that's all I've got for the value picks. Before you hop on out of here, let me know who your favorite value on the board is down in the comments. Also, go ahead and let me know why. I always love to hear from you. If I had to pick one of my picks this week to be my favorite, it'd be easy to say Aaron Wise, but I think I got to say Beau Hossler, right? Considering price, ownership, all that sort of fun stuff. I mean, that just seems like a spot that we have to take advantage of. But in either circumstance, go ahead and let me know who your favorite is down below. And as per usual, expect to see even more content dropping throughout the day today. Also tomorrow, we'll have our prize picks content dropping this afternoon. Fades and sleepers tomorrow morning. Our weekly DFS live stream tomorrow evening. That'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So a lot to drop, a lot of content to consume this week. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss any of that when it drops. Make sure you smash the like button too. It goes a long way with helping me grow the channel here. And best of luck with all of your lineups, all of your outrights for this week. And let's get this cash.